So giving up your citizenship shouldn't be taken lightly. We'd always recommend someone speak to an immigration lawyer to make sure they're doing it for the right reasons. First question, they'd probably ask is, have you got citizenship in another country, i.e. the UK? If you haven't, then giving up your US citizenship would make you stateless, which isn't a good idea. So obviously, I assume that they probably have got UK citizenship and maybe have no intention of going back to live in the US. And some people never lived there. I had a recent call where someone was born in the US, moved to the UK when they were 18 months, obviously with their parents, and hasn't lived in the US since. But they are still classified as a US person, and we're now going to have to file a number of returns because they never filed, because they didn't know they needed to file. And their intention is to give up their citizenship. So they're going through the renunciation process, where you basically make an appointment at the US Embassy. You go there with your US passport, and then basically, I think you stand in front of an American flag, and then have to give up your citizenship by, I don't know, you probably have to say something. But so I don't know the exact process, but a US immigration lawyer would be able to help in that regard. And then, basically, once you've done that, you should no longer be considered to be a US person from that date onwards. And you'd have to file a final US return in the year you give up your citizenship. It will be a dual status return where you report your worldwide income up to the date of expatriation. And then you'd only have to report US sourced income thereafter. And obviously, a lot of my clients in the UK wouldn't have any US sourced income. So that should be the final US return. You have to be a bit careful, because if your net worth is worth more than $2 million, then you could end up paying an exit tax. Exit tax is calculated as if you sold everything on the day of expatriation. That only affects people whose net worth is worth more than $2 million. So some people may give stuff away prior to expatriation in order to be under the 2 million if they're not already. And but if you are subject to the exit tax, as I say, it's deemed like you sold everything on the day of expatriation. There is a exemption of about $800,000 off the gain. So if your gain is less than $800,000, your deemed gain, I should say, then you may not have to pay any exit tax anyway. But the point being, there'd be much more. You have to go through things and make sure that you don't owe anything, and if you do, well, you'd have to pay the taxes. But that may be reason enough not to give up your citizenship if you're going to end up owing, several $100,000 or millions of dollars in the exit tax. So I'm happy to have a call with someone to talk about it anyway in more detail.
Thank you. Patrick, did you have anything to add to that?
I think that the question of renunciation is such a fraught one for personal reasons too. So you have to think about the potential tax costs with the possibility of an exit tax. You have to think about the massive benefits for simplifying your life. But in reality, having worked with a lot of people and a lot of people talking about it over the years, it's relatively rare, I think, for people to want to give up the access to the US as well, right? If you have substantial family ties back to the US, it's much harder to do. The hypothetical, or I suppose previous client that you had, Scott, that was 18 months old when they moved, that makes a lot more sense. But it's relatively rare, I think, for people to want to lose out on the family ties that are back there, which makes it not impossible to go back, but it's definitely a firm break. And I think for some people that's hard to get their head around. And I just come back to what I said at the beginning, which is there are always solutions that are out there. So being a US citizen doesn't make things impossible. It's just about choosing from a slightly different menu, right?